March 2019, ANA takes delivery of its first Airbus A380, a beautiful blue sea turtle livery. ANA had finally joined the Super Jumbo Club. However, they only ordered exactly 3 planes. Emirates operates over 100, Qantas 10, but here's what makes no sense. While other airlines built their premium brands around the A380, ANA confined theirs to a single leisure route, Tokyo to Honolulu, nothing else. No Europe, no America, no expansion plans whatsoever. Even stranger, these aircraft didn't fit ANA's existing fleet strategy. The A380 contradicted ANA's emphasis on twin-engine efficiency and frequency over capacity. So why on earth did ANA acquire aircraft that didn't fit their network, operate them on a single route, and refuse to expand beyond the minimal viable fleet? Well, to understand why ANA operates these aircraft, we need to examine a corporate collapse that nearly reshaped Japanese aviation entirely. The story begins with Skymark Airlines, Japanese scrappy low-cost challenger. Since its founding in 1996, it had built a respectable domestic operation. Then in 2011, Skymark announced a plan that stunned the industry. It even stunned me, and I was still a kid. It would order 6 Airbus A380s. This was extraordinary. At the time, Skymark had never operated a wide-body aircraft. No international experience, no alliance partnerships, no capital reserves really for long-haul operations. Yet here they were committing to 6 of the world's largest passenger jets. The logic was simple and deeply flawed. Skymark believed high-density A380s could undercut Japanese legacy carriers on long-haul leisure routes. They would bypass the alliance system entirely, offer low fares, and become Japan's 3rd major airline. But Skymark misread the market completely. You see, Japan's yield structure is pushing for newcomers. Slot constraints at Tokyo airports create brutal competition for nearly every departure. Long-haul routes require alliance feed and corporate traffic to fill premium cabins. The business travelers who make international flying profitable were locked into loyalty programs of ANA and Japan Airlines, decades of relationship building, corporate contracts, and status benefits. Skymark literally had none of this. It was literally attempting to build an international airline from scratch in one of the world's most competitive aviation markets, against 2 huge other airlines with a global alliance support and decades of market position. The financial pressure mounted very quickly. Development costs exceeded projections. The A380 order required enormous capital commitment. Skymark's domestic operation couldn't really generate enough cash flow to support international expansion. And by January 2015, the inevitable happened. Bankruptcy protection. Their long-haul ambitions vanished completely. The airline that had dreamed of challenging Japan's establishment was fighting for survival. But here's where things got complicated. Dangerously complicated. Airbus had actually terminated Skymark's A380 order months earlier, in July 2014, amid disputes over payments and delivery schedules. But production had already begun. Aircraft were in advanced manufacturing stages, fuselages were taking shape, systems being installed, millions of dollars of work already completed. Cancelling outright would mean massive financial losses for Airbus, write-offs, penalty clauses, industrial embarrassment for an aviation program already facing serious questions about its future. These A380s had become aviation's most expensive orphans. 3 superjumbos in production limbo, too costly to cancel and too awkward to sell. Everyone faced an uncomfortable situation. 3 half-built superjumbos of no buyer, a collapsed airline that had symbolized competition in Japanese aviation, and then finally increasing pressure from a very unexpected source. Delta Airlines had been watching this very, very carefully. And to understand why Delta's involvement changed everything, we need to examine how Japan's aviation market actually functions. You see, Japan operates under duopoly. ANA and Japan Airlines have historically dominated domestic traffic. Low-cost carriers have been growing their share in recent years, but the legacy carriers still control the critical feed for international routes. A passenger flying from Osaka to New York connects through Tokyo. The same carrier domestically and internationally. The alliance system reinforces this structure. On flights to and from the US, ANA partners of United through Star Alliance, Japan Airlines partners with American through Oneworld. Both Japanese carriers get American traffic. No foreign airline gains independent leverage. But the thing is, Delta occupied a very awkward position. After losing its historical Narita hub dominance, Delta lacked a Japanese partner. Every passenger Delta flew to Japan terminated there. There were no domestic connections. Outside of Japan, elsewhere in Asia, plenty of partners, but in Japan, none. This wasn't a minor inconvenience, it was an existential strategic problem. Trans-Pacific aviation is brutally competitive. The carriers that succeed are the ones with domestic networks on both ends. United had ANA, American had Japan Airlines. Delta, on the other hand, had nothing. Its Japan strategy was constrained. Narita flights couldn't compete on connections. Passengers often chose United or American because the Japanese domestic network came included. Delta was fighting with one arm tied behind its back. Skymark therefore represented a very, very interesting opportunity. You see, an independent Japanese carrier, even bankrupt, could provide something invaluable: domestic feed that bypassed ANA and Japan Airlines entirely. Delta could book passengers from Osaka to Atlanta with a Skymark connection, Sapporo to Seattle, Fukuoka to Los Angeles. Suddenly, Delta would have what United and American had enjoyed for years. The alliance monopoly would crack. And that's exactly what Delta attempted. As Skymark entered bankruptcy, Delta made its move. Exploration of partnership arrangements, potential equity investment. For Japanese regulators, this triggered an immediate alarm. A Delta-backed Skymark operating A380s International with domestic feed would challenge the existing market structure. ANA and Japan Airlines had spent decades building their positions, slot allocations, alliance relationships, established customer bases. Delta literally threatened to unravel all of it. And the solution came from ANA. In 2016, ANA placed a firm order for 3 Airbus A380s. Industry observers widely link this to the Skymark situation. The Orphaned production slots had finally found a buyer. The decision did raise questions. The A380 completely contradicted ANA's network philosophy. ANA emphasized frequency over capacity, twin-engine wide-bodies serving more city pairs with smaller aircraft flexibly, efficiency, not mega hubs funneling passengers through jumbo jets. The A380 represented everything ANA had deliberately avoided: massive capacity requiring massive demand, infrastructure investment for a single aircraft type, operational complexity that didn't scale across their network. But 3 A380s did solve a very awkward situation. 3 aircraft to operate a niche Hawaii product, 3 aircraft that wouldn't disrupt ANA's core network strategy. The fleet size was very deliberate. 3 aircraft allows for crew qualification requirements, maintenance scheduling with backup capacity, dispatch reliability with rotation buffers. Fewer than 3 makes consistent scheduling more difficult. More than 3 would signal strategic ambition that didn't really exist. 3 says this is a contained operation and nothing more. ANA were then super clever. They isolated these aircraft completely from the rest of its operation, all flying on one concentrated route, as mentioned at the very start of this video, Tokyo Narita to Honolulu. The aircraft would never rotate through the broader network, never substitute on European routes when 787s experience maintenance issues. Basically like an operational quarantine for the A380s. The aircraft were even branded separately. Flying Honu. Honu is Hawaiian for green sea turtle. 3 distinct liveries in blue, green and orange named Lani, Kai and Kala. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Marketing reframed an inherited problem as a destination product. Passengers weren't flying on an orphaned aircraft type, they were experiencing a unique Hawaii product. The liveries became Instagram moments, the turtle theme extended to cabin amenities, headrest covers, meal presentations, and even the safety cards. Clever branding obscured the awkward origins of the A380 in the first place. Honolulu made sense for very specific reasons. Heavily leisure-driven traffic tolerates lower yields. Business routes demand premium pricing. And leisure routes accept volume economics. Hawaii fits the A380's strength perfectly. And then we need to look at the traffic numbers because it's very substantial. Over 1.5 million Japanese visitors traveled to Hawaii in 2019. Think honeymoons, family vacations, golf trips, a mature market with predictable seasonal patterns. Peak seasons fill this aircraft consistently. Summer holidays, Golden Week, New Year. Shoulder seasons see lower demand, but ANA accepts this. And the distance between the two destinations work. Approximately 6,150 kilometers, well within the A380 range limits. There are no payload restrictions, no fuel stop complications. Honolulu Airport did require gate upgrades to handle the A380. Hawaii's DOT invested in infrastructure modifications, but the route's leisure economics really justified the investment. Critically, the route carries zero alliance sensitivity. Tokyo Honolulu doesn't threaten premium corporate traffic to mainland America, doesn't compete with Star Alliance partner United on any of its meaningful routes. It's a leisure market, self-contained, isolated from network politics. Using A380s on European routes would have been very different. London, Frankfurt, Paris, those routes carry corporate traffic, alliance implications, partner sensitivities. Hawaii literally avoided all of that. The result is an aircraft type functioning like fixed infrastructure. Limited utilization compared to ANA's twin-engine fleet. ANA builds slack into rotations because there's no spare fourth aircraft. When an A380 goes technical, schedule adjustments follow. ANA accepts this vulnerability. Expanding the fleet would contradict its entire purpose. Delta shifted strategy. Without Skymark as a partner, they pursued market access through other means. Bilateral negotiations, slot reallocations, a different path. The Skymark opportunity had closed. Japan's aviation structure remained largely unchanged. ANA and Japan Airlines continued dominating domestic traffic, and United and American continued through their partnership arrangements. Free Blue Sea Turtle A380s now fly endlessly between Narita and Honolulu. Whatever the original motivation, they have become a unique product in ANA's network. And fast forward to today, ANA is still flying its free A380s. They're continuing their isolated operation. Narita to Honolulu, nothing else. Zero expansion, zero network integration. Operations disrupted by the pandemic, but they have now been resumed. They're among the youngest A380s anywhere in the world. The first was only delivered in March 2019, the second in May 2019, and the third was accepted in October 2020, stored during the pandemic, and then finally entering service in 2023. Emirates received the final new build A380 in December 2021, ending production. But ANA's aircraft still rank among the last delivered. The irony is notable. As ANA was accepting these aircraft, some carriers were stepping back from the A380 entirely. Air France retired its ahead of schedule, Lufthansa reduced its active fleet during the pandemic. The program that was supposed to define the 21st century aviation had become increasingly niche. Emirates remains committed to flying the A380s well into the 2040s, but smaller operators completely lack that scale. So when could ANA actually retire its A380s? Well, with careful maintenance, these aircraft could theoretically fly for decades. Think low cycle counts from limited utilization. That extends component life. One round trip per day. Landing gear will last longer. Engine parts accumulate fewer cycles, pressurization systems face less stress. These A380s may retire while still structurally capable of continued service, but economic viability depends on the broader A380 system. As the global A380 fleet consolidates around fewer operators, smaller fleets face different economics. Emirates will continue investing heavily in A380 support infrastructure through the 2040s, extending engine service arrangements with Rolls-Royce. But smaller operators like ANA can't replicate that scale. ANA has no A380 replacement on order, and let's be honest, it's probably never going to replace the A380. Its long-term strategy prioritizes twin-engine wide bodies. Boeing 787s for medium-haul flexibility, and the forthcoming 777X for high-capacity long-haul routes. It's modern, efficient, and scalable. When the A380s eventually retire, they'll simply disappear from the network. Hawaii's service reverts to twin-engine operations, possibly higher frequency, and the Flying Honu brand will quietly be wound down. ANA has not announced a retirement timeline, but aircraft designed for decades of service may fly considerably less. ANA's A380 story reveals something fundamental about aviation. Sometimes aircraft acquisitions serve purposes beyond passenger demand. Think corporate strategy, market positioning, and competitive dynamics. These 3 superjumbos were ordered at a moment when a foreign competitor was attempting to reshape Japanese aviation, when a corporate collapse created industrial uncertainty, when Japan's market structure faced potential disruption. Whether ANA acquired them specifically to block Delta, or simply to resolve an awkward industrial situation, the outcome was the same. Delta's partnership ambitions ended, Skymark's A380s found a home, and Japan's aviation duopoly remained intact. Everything since then has been optimization, not ambition, managing an unusual asset rather than building something new. 3 aircraft, 1 route, 6 years and counting. Exactly enough to serve a purpose, not 1 aircraft more.